Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about TTRPGs. First up for TTRPG today, we've got the Help It's Again mug. Still, the all-black one, big fan. And inside of it, we still have the warm bread pudding black tea from the Spice and Tea Exchange. Go check them out. They're really, really great. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are here to talk about running the game of Downfall. So, let's go ahead and let's just break this bad boy open and get to it. This is probably going to be the longest episode on this game just because it is basically going to cover everything else about the game that we haven't talked about already. Because, again, the rules are 50 pages long. And that's it. 50 short pages long, I should say. So let's go ahead and let's just start at the beginning and go from there. The way that this book is actually laid out is very, very useful because it basically goes in the order of the things that you need to do. And so we're going to go ahead we're going to run through all the different things that you are going to need to do to actually run a game of Downfall. Again, there's no GM for this game, which means that you are not going to have a single person who is trying to prep everything out. It is going to be a sit down at the table and get going kind of thing for the three people that are playing the game. Important to remember, game's about 2-4 hours long. Takes exactly 3 people. If you have more than that, your game is going to be a little bit more complicated because the rules don't actually account for that. But I'm sure that there's a way to adapt it to actually do that. The things you're going to need to actually run the game: a copy of each individual character sheet that will be passed around so that you can kind of keep track of like what is going on with everybody. 7 index cards, and then a writing utensil for each player. That's everything you need, and that is it. Honest to God, that's it. So don't stress out too much. It is the way that it is. It's not a terribly complicated game. It's just kind of meta sometimes. So let's go ahead, kick it off from the start. You pick your flaw. We talked about that on Tuesday, I believe. Your flaw is the driving force behind the game. It's going to be the thing that causes the ultimate destruction of your entire civilization. You know, lighthearted things. From there, you decide on your haven. Your haven is going to be the thing that is being destroyed by whatever the flaw is. It is going to be basically your main character-ish of the game. Obviously, your main character is actually the hero, but the focus of the game is going to be on the downfall of the situation. Downfall. So, what you do in creating your haven is each individual around the table, so all 3 of you, choose a element of the game, or of the haven. Elements examples are air, blood, cave, chains, clouds, death, dirt, dream, red, sand, sea, sky, smog, steam, empire, fire, grass. They've got a whole little table in the book with a bunch of options, or you can make one up on your own. Each person picks one in secret, and then goes ahead and puts them all out on the table at the same time, so that you can then collaborate on how they interact with each other and how they actually create the basis of the haven that you're working with. Using those 3 elements, you go ahead and you fabricate the actual place that you are. So what you do is you write down your flaw in the middle of one of your index cards, and then underneath that flaw you write down the 3 elements that you have picked here as sort of the core tenets of your civilization. From there, you then go ahead and you pick traditions, because that is sort of the driving force behind culture in this game, behind the culture of the haven in the game. You choose a category. Everybody gets an index card, and then you choose a category of tradition that you want. Again, you can create your own categories here, but the ones that they have in the book are something like architecture, art, birth, death, economics, education, fashion, food, government, love, military, naming, and relationships. Each player chooses a tradition, and you go in order for this one. Each person picks one, and then from there you actually go on to create the tradition of what is in that tradition, or in that category. So you pick your category, you write it in the top of one of your note cards, and under that you write down what the actual tradition is. The example they give here is they picked relationships as their category, and underneath it the tradition is that people proclaim their love in the Forbidden Grove. From there, beneath that, you draw a line, and then you come up with a symbol that relates to each one of your traditions. So, for example, with our tradition that we just talked about is the example in the book of the people proclaim their love in the Forbidden Grove. The symbol for that is a black leaf kept by the couple as proof. And then they drew a little picture of it. I don't know that you need to draw a little picture of it, but it is a useful little reference for you. And then repeat. You continue to repeat it for a while. Once you have figured out your three main traditions, sorry about that. Once you figure out your three main traditions, you go ahead and you name your haven. That you then go ahead and you write directly over the top of your flaw. Now that you have what the place is, your flaw for it, and your traditions for it, you are able to actually effectively give it a name. From there, you go ahead and you fabricate your heroes. Your characters, not your heroes. The whole point is that there's only one hero. You go ahead and you create your hero, your fallen, and your pillar. We talked about those already, so I'm not going to go back through them necessarily, even though it is pretty dang cool. It is a lot of fun. I'm also realizing I believe that I said 3 traditions. There should be 6 total. That's why you need 7 cards. There should be 6 total traditions that you come up with so that you have plenty of fodder to actually work with. And from there, you are ready to actually play the game. Congratulations. So that beginning process takes as long as it takes. You sit down, you create your world with it before you actually dive into it. So your step-by-step guide on page 30 of this book on how to play the game is called Overview Destruction, which is fun. So what you do is there are 5 steps for each one of these things, and we're just going to go ahead and walk right through them. The first being corruption. So step 1 is corruption, which I think is just sort of fun. Corruption, basically, the person playing the pillar, you might think to yourself, the pillar is a boring place to be in the game. It's not, actually. The pillar gets to do all the weird little things in the middle that make the game, or that keep the game interesting as you go along. The first thing you do is you, as the pillar player, choose a tradition and then describe the corruption that happens with that specific thing. So, the example they provide here, the pillar player chooses the tradition, jobs are dispersed by vending machines, which, again, alien sort of traditional for us, but honestly, could be a pretty normal part of life in the game. And they go on to describe it from there. So the police have started creating fake golden contracts and then tracking and arresting the people who take them. With the intention, as the little scene that they have here plays out, so you can't even trust the jobs you get anymore. A golden job might be for a lot of money, or it might be a plant so that you will get arrested. That is the corruption of that one. And then in the scene that you go from there, the hero is interacting with that specific corruption so that you are, trying to actually fight against the flaw, because the idea is that the corruption is being driven by the flaw so that the eventual downfall of the society will happen. So following the corruption, the hero frames the scene. The hero is the one that actually sets up the scene and interacts with it in a way that makes sense, makes it a intriguing scene for everybody to play out, specifically related to that corruption. From there, sorry, I lost my page. I know how this goes, but I just want to make sure that we have the right thing here. From there, then the Fallen also helps to frame out the scene so that things can continue to go in order, but they are happening from a slightly different perspective. Obviously, the story overall will be told from the hero's perspective, but having it reframed in the more negative light, or more adversarial light, I guess is the better way to say it, of the Fallen is going to help motivate that thing to continue to drive forward. During any scene that is going on at any point, the hero is narrating what they do, and if they decide to do something that is maybe not, or might have some dun-dun consequences, the Fallen can actually jump in and say, but there is a consequence related to whatever you're doing. And then they narrate the consequence and results of the hero's action from that. Consequences aren't supposed to be random little things that happen. It's not, oh, you cross the street and you get a ticket for jaywalking. It's you cross the street, and in doing so, somebody tries to chase behind you, and I don't know, bad things happen. The point is, the consequences should be meaningful sacrifices or unfortunate outcomes that naturally result from the hero's actions. The example they give here, as I hold the dying Jessica in my arms, I can save you, I whisper. I use my ring to call energy from the trees into her body. She takes a deep breath and smiles, light returning to her eyes. Fallen. But there's a consequence. By drawing energy from the fallen trees, you have also drawn out their life. They wither even as Jessica reawakens. The Grove of Sages dead at last. So, the Fallen, again, their motivation is the player's motivation of the Fallen. Important. It is important to remember that the player of the Fallen and the Pillar are actually the players that are interacting with the different characters, whereas the hero is playing the hero. The player of the Fallen's motivation is to attempt to push forward the fall of the actual city. So, don't forget that part. Next step, reflection. As I mentioned before, at one point, when I was talking about scenes, I think on Tuesday, the end of each scene comes with a reflection period. Basically, the way that it works is that the hero's player reflects on the current state of the Haven to the rest of the table, what they believe they have accomplished, what they have noticed is falling out from it, and basically from there, they will decide if they are ready to let the city fall or not. If they are ready to let the city fall, you will rotate one more time, and you will narrate the end of the civilization. If you're not ready yet, you'll still rotate your character sheets, and you will go ahead and you will move on to the next the next scene. Basically, the intention of the game is to play out the full 6 scenes in corrupting each individual one of the traditions, and seeing how the flaw has really sort of gotten to the root of the entire problem and collapsed the entire civilization. Which brings us to our final step here, collapse. So, after we've roleplayed the last scene, each player gets to narrate a final short moment of the Haven as it collapses. If we haven't seen the Haven collapse yet, it is time to describe its final destruction. So if you've made it all the way through the 6 scenes, or I guess really if you've made it through 5 and you're like, we're not ready for it to fall yet, there's still stuff to do, you play out the last 6th scene, and then you go ahead and you finish out with the ending after that. You play out the natural consequences of everything that has been going on to its full fruition. If we haven't seen the Haven collapse yet, it's time to describe it in final destruction. At this point, the hero is allowed to die if we want. I guess I didn't touch on that earlier when I was talking about characters, so I'm going to do it really, really quick. The Fallen and Pillar characters can die in scene. Doesn't matter. Their basically consciousness transfers to a different person then as they go through. Hero can't die. Give the Pillar's current player the index card with the Haven's information on it and flip over the character sheets. The player holding the card describes the Haven's collapse through the hero's perspective. So, again, being the Pillar, not a bad thing. Pass the card to the right and repeat until everyone has narrated a short vignette of the Haven's collapse. Once every player has narrated the final moment, the game ends. Few examples here, or I guess example here. The hero sees the village's agate houses shattered. There we go. He can't tell which is redder, the sky or the blood that runs along the ice. He sees the survivors scattering, each carrying a shard from their former home. He looks at his reflection in the thinning ice, falls to his knees, pounding the ice until it cracks. If the hero dies before you make your vignette, you can use your vignette to describe how their death worsens the downfall. The Haven is fallen, brought low by the very flaw that once made it great. Our hero's futile task is complete. Perhaps one day we can salvage something from the ruins of our former home. Perhaps not. Dun dun. And that's the end of the game. Super happy, right? Again, really, really sort of odd, off the beaten path kind of thing. I think it's a really, really cool game. It's important to note that I have talked about how there are like 50 pages of rules and then there's like 65 total pages. That's because they have guides for different types of cities and things you could do just sort of all throughout here. It's really, really interesting, really, really cool. And then there's just sort of like information in the back here. So use that for whatever you want to. But they do have pre-builts in here if you want to just sit down and get rolling. It's really kind of cool. But that's Downfall. really in its entirety. If you guys have questions, let me know, and I will answer them for tomorrow's episode. But like, I've basically covered every word in this book at this point, because it's just that straightforward. It's not a super complicated game. It's not terribly difficult to pick up and play, and it's just weird. It's going to be different than what you're used to if you're used to coming from like a D20 system or a dice system at all. So it's just different. But I think it's really, really cool, and I hope you guys do too. And I hope somebody checks it out, because I was really, really sort of blown away when I picked it up, because it's so different. But yeah, that's Downfall. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, we're back on the horse now. We'll be back next week, even if we're not going to be here tomorrow. So let me know if you guys have questions. Like I said, happy to answer them. But check out Downfall. But that's everything I have for you guys today, and I guess this week. Thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my subscribers. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in if you're interested in supporting the show, subscribe either on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platform. The second day in a row I did that. But yeah, that's everything I have for you. So with all that said, everybody, don't forget, drink tea, play TTRPGs, and keep on rolling.